With everything that I do, I think the main goal is to at least try to bring something that we haven't seen before, even in small ways. And so with this one, it was really just using our what we know and love about romantic comedies to kind of like lead the audience down a certain path and then try to pull the rug out from under them every step of the way to keep them guessing, and hopefully it felt original in that way.
Dave, I absolutely love this movie, man. It is it's so great. I related to it so much, though, for a multitude of different reasons, which we'll dive into. But my first question I got to ask you is, what was the inspiration for Somebody I Used to Know?
You know, my wife and I, we wrote this one together, and we were actually walking through my hometown in Northern California, and we were walking from my high school to my mom's house. And during that walk, you know, all those kind of themes of going home and reconnecting with your roots and confronting like who you used to be compared to who you are now and how you feel about all that, it just kind of seeped into the story.
I love the projects that you and Allison both work on. Can you talk about your guys' collaboration process a little bit?
Yeah, so we've done a few together now, but this is the first time where it's been all encompassing. You know, we built it from the ground up, we wrote it together, and we have such a good time. Like, a lot of people ask, they're like, how was it working with your wife? And they say it kind of in that skeptical tone, which is like more informative of how they imagine it would be working with their own partner. But like, for whatever reason, it really works. And like, in terms of like practically how we work together, I'll be at the computer typing away. She'll be walking back and forth, and I'll be like, okay, tell me what would you say in this scenario? And she would start acting it out, and I'll just write down what she says. And it's a lot of like literally acting out the scenes and going back and forth.
I love that workshop, kind of like the way you guys kind of do that. Now, yes. Allison is kind of playing the villain in someone else's story. How do you make the audiences fall in love with that type of protagonist, antagonist character?
It was maybe the biggest challenge of the movie. It's one of those things where you look at a movie like My Best Friend's Wedding, right? Where Julia Roberts, her character is not always doing the most morally sound things, but it's coming from a place of vulnerability. You know, Julia in that movie, Allison in this movie, they're lost, you know, and Allison really feels like this guy, played by Jay Ellis, is the answer to her problems. And so it is coming from this place of you know, a good place, as opposed to like coming in a completely villainous way and being like, I'm just gonna crash this wedding and tear them apart. And so the whole thing came about, though, where we just wanted all the characters to feel human and real and messy and flawed. But at the end of the day, they're good people. They're just going through it, man.
Now, you bring up My Best Friend's Wedding, and I know that's referenced in the movie. Was there any other films that you kind of drew inspiration from or researched while you were writing this?
Yes. I mean, we really love the classics from the 80s and 90s, like When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, Pretty Woman, those types of movies. And then, you know, the more recent ones that we really love are Enough Said, Palm Springs, Knocked Up, The Big Sick, Fire Islands. And so we're genuinely like, we love romantic comedies, and we just, you know, we started writing this at the very beginning of COVID lockdown. And so at that time, the movies that we were watching were a little more uplifting and positive and hopeful, like during a really dark time of the world. And so we just kind of felt like, you know what, let's do our own version of that, and let's put out some positivity into the world.
There are really two powerful conversations about recapturing artistic passion after becoming jaded and losing your way in Hollywood that I find really, really moving. What inspired that message in Somebody I Used to Know?
There's been moments on my journey where I felt myself kind of holding on to everything a little too tight because I was scared it would all go away. And when you do that, what happens sometimes is that you just stop taking risks. You stop putting yourself out there, and you almost forget why you got into it in the first place. And so, you know, I think part of the reason I even started directing was because I'd been wanting to do it for so long, but I was scared. And eventually I was like, you know what? this is in me and I got to get it out. And I, you know what, who cares what anyone else thinks? I just need to do this for me at this moment. And I can say now, like, the 2 times I've directed have been some of the more enjoyable times I've had on set.
The both films you directed are fantastic. So I'm happy that you dove in and did that. Now, this movie really captures the desire to find comfort at home in the, this movie really captures the desire to find comfort in the past home, only to find that the world has moved on around you. Where did that emotion come from?
I think specifically about, you know, when we're talking about the one that got away, I think what happens in those scenarios is when you have some distance from that relationship, you tend to remember the good things. And the truth is, you know, if you do ever reconnect with that person, you realize that, oh, there were always inherent issues and reasons why we were never meant to be together. There's a reason you're the one that got away. And so that was one of the themes we were trying to explore. And then on top of that, it's like, you know, when you're young and you got stars in your eyes and you have these dreams and hopes and aspirations for yourself, over time, you can maybe kind of veer off that path. And I think this movie is partially about how even if you have veered off that path and even if you have found yourself in a place that you're not necessarily completely comfortable or happy with, it's not too late. You can still pivot. And even in small ways, like, you know, my dad, he went to college for painting and then he went away from that for 40 years. And then after 40 years, he was like, you know what? I'm going to take it back up just as a hobby. And I had never seen him happier. And so it's like, it's not too late. Go after the things you love.
Now, Leavenworth, Washington is almost like a character itself. Yeah. How did you guys land on Leavenworth being the backdrop of this film?
It's a quirky little Bavarian town in Washington State, and I discovered it because one of my good friends, her family has a house there, and I got invited for her sister's wedding, and I remember being there and being like, what the fuck is this place? And it really stuck with me, obviously, and became kind of the perfect setting for the movie, where you can imagine someone growing up in a town like that, where it's pretty isolated, it's small, it's got the tourist aspect to it, and you can imagine people being like, I gotta get out of here. This is like stifling, I just need to leave. And then you can imagine them growing up and looking back and just appreciating like its beauty and its uniqueness and its charm, where like it truly is this gorgeous city, like nestled in these mountains. And so that theme of kind of looking back and being like, oh, seeing it all in a new light was like very tied into Allison's journey in the movie.
This is the part that really hit home for me. I used to be an associate producer on a reality based cooking show.
Amazing.
So I got to ask you, those scenes really hit home for me. And I got to ask you, what were some of the more ridiculous dessert-based reality shows that you guys came up with and pitched around?
Right. She has the napkin at one point where she's writing down the different shows. I'm trying to remember what we have. We have Fudge Get About It, a Sopranos hosted season. There's, of course, there's Foods You Can Fuck. Right. Which we realized there might have been a missed opportunity there where maybe we could have begged Jason Biggs to come in and do a scene of Foods You Can Fuck.
That would have been phenomenal.
I'm trying to remember the other ones. There was like Des Yurt, where you go camping in a yurt and who knows what happens. I don't know.
These are great. Now, I love this intimate, character-driven type of movie, and I feel like it's something we started to lose with these big blockbusters and franchises taking over Hollywood. What drives you to this type of storytelling?
I think it just felt Allison and I just wanted a story that felt true to our sensibilities and our sense of humor, and we got really lucky to pair with Amazon, who truly, like, they let us make the movie we wanted to make, which is rare these days. And I give them so much credit because, you know, this isn't a down the middle movie. Like, we're doing some weird things. We're taking some swings. And so I guess I didn't really think about it, but like with everything that I do, I think the main goal is to at least try to bring something that we haven't seen before, even in small ways. And so with this one, it was really just using what we know and love about romantic comedies to kind of like lead the audience down a certain path and then try to pull the rug out from under them every step of the way to keep them guessing. And hopefully it felt original in that way.
Absolutely did. I absolutely love the film, Dave. Thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your enthusiasm. It's great talking to you, man.
You too. Take care, Dave.